What is going on, everybody? Today I want to talk to you all about what I call the Marvel Strike Force sunk cost fallacy. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, I'm sure there are plenty of characters that you might have geared in the past, especially if you're a veteran player, and were on the fence about taking them forward in gear tier, but you did it anyways because of how much you already invested in them. This is quite common, especially with older Dark Dimension characters, or just generally, and deciding to gear them because you were only one gear tier away, and or they were cheap to gear in some cases to enter Dark Dimension, especially for your first couple of characters. Even if they were not the best choices. I'm guilty of some of this, we're going to go over that. So in this video, I want to share with you guys all of the mistakes I've made in my roster, but particularly when it comes to gear, and those I took on to further to gear tier 14 or 15, but kind of really regret doing so and wish I could get some of these resources back in hindsight. So strap in, everyone, and let's get this show started. Alright, and so for the purposes of this, we are filtering the roster by gear tier. I do have some characters up at the top of the screen here, as you guys notice. And there isn't anyone on here that I necessarily... definitely not at the top that I regret, because they're characters that I'm working on anyways. Shatterstar and Longshot, for example, I don't plan on taking them above tier 14 unless there is an absolute reason that I need to do that, or a future X Factor character, which isn't the topic of today's video, but that's as far as you need to go, when it comes to Adam Warlock, because I believe it's gear tier 14, level 5 ISOs for 7-star Adam Warlock, so I don't really need to go beyond that, and which is exactly why multiple Mana Polaris are sitting here, because I need to gear tier them up a little bit further. Maria Hill and Sharon Carter I haven't gotten to yet, just because that's where my roster's at. We're not doing a roster review, but what we are doing, we're going to start at the bottom. We're going to start at my gear tier 13 characters, and these are the characters that, for one reason or another, I may have geared them, and we're going to go over each one of them, and why they didn't go further, and why I even have them at gear tier 13 in the first place. So it starts here. Now, Shang-Chi's new, we're not really talking about that necessarily. I geared him because Heroes for Hire, I early unlocked him, why not? So that's not really on trial. Shang-Chi's not on trial here in this video. But Star-Lord, okay, so let's start with Star-Lord. Why do I have Star-Lord at gear tier 13? Well, he was actually in only ISO 1. Maybe, I don't know if he's... I don't use Star-Lord. Star-Lord, he's geared to... And he's like 3 out of 4 tier 4, which is hilarious, even though he's only got 66k power. He's actually one of 3 characters, 3 characters in my roster that are sitting at a 3 red. I have 4 red or higher for every single character other than Star-Lord. Poor Star-Lord, I never managed to get a 4 red out of any pulls for him. And he's all those T4s. But where I used him the most was actually in Dark Dimension 2. Believe it or not, back in the day when Dark Dimension 2 first came out, Star-Lord was very meta because of his generating ability from his special, Applying Blind, his decent control, although his focus is actually terribly low, even though it's unavoidable, means he can't be blinded when he uses it. And it can blind up to 3 targets here with the T4s, which is why I picked it up. But yeah, not so great now. And his passive generates ability energy for adjacent allies on top of Guardian allies. Now, if it's... that doesn't really matter, I guess. But the 1 to 2 ability energy was really great for having Minerva next to Star-Lord. At the time, this was a very common tactic to run for Dark Dimension 2. This was like 2 years ago, of course. Minerva, Star-Lord, and we're going to get to some of the other characters, why I also have them at gear tier 13, which I think was the requirement for Dark Dimension 2, right? I'm level 70, gear tier 13. I'm pretty sure that's the requirement to get into Dark Dimension 2. So... moving on from that, we have Juggernaut. I have no idea why Juggernaut's sitting at gear tier 13. It's a good thing I didn't take him further. I think I just really liked Brotherhood 1.0 at the time, and I don't even have T4s in him, strangely. And I think that's primarily the reason why I geared him. Obviously I don't... No, he's still part of that team, the Brotherhood 2.0, but, I don't really use it that much anymore. It's actually been dropped from my Alliance War offense, so poor Juggernaut, unfortunately, not getting more gear. Sif, this was because of the Asgardians. They were very, very meta on the war defense, but I didn't actually use her anywhere else. Now, my partner, for example, has Sif at gear tier 14, and that was a little bit of a sunk cost fallacy for him, because Sif was cosmic, so he decided to say, hey, why not use Sif Sif into Dark Dimension 3 Cosmic. Turned out she was not very good, though. So I guess it was that point. It's like, well, Sif's already at tier 13. Let's take her to 14. So, you know, some characters do require a fair bit of gear. I don't know how many sets that Sif takes. I think she takes quite a bit. 3? Oh my lord. 3 sets? 4 sets. Holy crap. She actually takes a lot of gear. And she's skill. So nowadays that is well out the window. There's so many other skill characters out there. Do not use it on Sif. But some people did. Colleen Wing, again, for the same reason as Shang-Chi, I think I might invest more at some point. She is 5 yellow, 5 red, so that's quite good. But skill, I need to make sure I get Sharon Carter and Maria Hill leveled up and geared before I even think about Colleen Wing because of a war defense thing. You know, you guys know how I feel about war defense. Other characters: Groot, Nick Fury, and Shield Security. So I have to say, this in tandem with Star-Lord, very, very common. So Dark Dimension 2, I use Star-Lord and Groot, Nick Fury, Shield Security, and Minerva. I think I also use Jessica Jones, who was going to be... she's right there. Yeah, so these six. Now, I don't remember which one I started with. I think I started with with these characters. I think Star-Lord was added in for my second run because of all this tech gear. I couldn't do it because Minerva was also tech. And so I couldn't do Minerva and Star-Lord at the same time. But they were all used for this reason. Now, why you ran Nick Fury and Shield Security was for the boss at the time. And so Shield Security taunts every time an ally gets under 50% health. Really good for keeping people alive back then. And Nick Fury, of course, with his buffs and being able to spread it with Rally, with his special. So this was very, very handy in Dark Dimension 2, back when there was extremely limited options for characters. As of yet, I have not come up with a great reason to gear or level any of these other characters, including Nick Fury, despite a few content creators saying that Nick Fury with the Secret Avengers is actually a good thing. And I also commented that there is a possibility that Nick Fury could actually be involved in the next legendary character unlock, but I have, I'm a bit on the fence on that one here. Spider-Man. He was my very first 5 red star character, believe it or not, back in the day, and that's the sole reason he's on this list. He didn't do anything else for me. What a shame. If OG Spider-Man does get a rework down the line, at least I'll have him here already, but there's, absolutely no point of having this, so I didn't take him further on. Agent Coulson, same thing as Sif, actually, for the war defense thing. Again, very solid character at the time, and was very powerful, but didn't take him further. Again, Thor, part of that Asgardian team, same reason as Sif, same reason as Agent Coulson. Don't really use him much else. Some people decided to take him further, if you have like a 6 or 7 red star, but realistically, not a lot of use. Kitty Pryde needs to be on that star list, actually, but because she's my asthma, I took her off the star list because of the I can't gear her. So Deathpool took the miasma out from under Kitty Pryde, so I will be putting more gear into her later. Jessica Jones, we already talked about. Rocket, I have zero clue why Rocket is gear tier 13. I think it was because of BKT rating back in the day. Ultimate 7, this was a very strong raid team before the likes of Symbiotes, and this was very solid. Yelena, have zero clue. I think I was trying, if you guys remember way back when, in January and February when Skilletary came out, I was trying to get Skilletary to work properly, and my biggest problem was that Yelena didn't have the focus to land her special, so I decided to go in on the gear just to see if it would make a difference. I didn't quite take her up to gear tier 14, and I have no intentions of doing that now. Okay, so I think that's Loki and Vision. Okay, so not sure. 6 red, maybe that's why I decided to do that. Vision, he was actually used in my arena team way back before Black Order. It was a very common combo to use Vision and Hela together, because Vision could ability block and Hela could spread that, and that was pretty nuts at the time. Nowadays you don't use that, and we've talked a little bit about maybe the potential of Vision getting a rework, so not sure about that. Fingers crossed, but we'll see if that happens, and if it does, I got a 6 red, so, and he's sitting at gear 13, so it's part of the way there. Now I want to talk about some of the characters that went to 14, because 14 is where you get the big jump in terms of character stats, and why, and this is the Dark Dimension 3 category. So you'll see a lot of these characters I did use in Dark Dimension 3, not all of them, but some of them I did. So Scientist Supreme, definitely on that list. I used for Dark Dimension 3 Global, not the best, not the worst. Definitely not worth doing now. Was sort of on the fence back then. I kind of regret doing this, but maybe down the line for tech, if we get MODOK, you know, maybe this might be something that might be worth it later. Strife, because Asgardians, Marauders were very meta on the war defense. This is the only reason. I didn't use them in Dark Dimension, actually. It was mostly for that extra stat gain in Gear Tier 14. Unfortunately, he's only 4 red. Ultron, very contentious here. So I did use him in Dark Dimension 3 Global. This was a long time ago, probably about a year and a half now. I don't know. I have the playlist up on my channel if you want to look. But I did use him in my first, I'm pretty sure it was my first run that I used him. And he was okay at the time, but he did get smashed pretty quickly, unfortunately, despite the Gear Tier 14 bump. Colossus, he was part of my Dark Dimension 3 Global team. Using Colossus and Phoenix side by side at the same time was very, very common tactic to use for everyone then, but I make zero use of this now, and unfortunately, in hindsight, I wish I could get some of those resources back. Longshot, we already talked about alongside Shatterstar. Magneto, I was really obsessed with the Brotherhood, probably why Juggernaut is also Gear Tier 13. Magneto is also 6 red, so I decided why not. I don't plan on taking him further though, unfortunately. As much as I love Magneto, he just doesn't have the use for, you know, putting that gear in. Shuri, also 7 red, but I did use her in Dark Dimension 3 Global as well back then. I don't recommend it now, but she was very handy. If you guys recall, the Double Fist node, and I forget which node this is because it's been a very long time since I've done Dark Dimension 3, but there was many Iron Fist and Defenders characters, and you could use Shuri's basic to basically heal block. Super important. Any of the Black Order characters, that's because of the Black Order arena meta, not because of Dark Dimension. Black Bolt, I did take Black Bolt to Dark Dimension 3 Cosmic. He was okay at best. He was pure damage, and that was good, but Dark Dimension really isn't about damage. It's about kind of keeping yourself alive, sustaining yourself, and all of that. Minerva, same thing. Now, she was taken up to Gear Tier 15, so now we're reaching the Gear Tier 15 realm, and most of the characters that are Gear Tier 15 or above are A, either my arena meta, B, they're part of my Doom Raid team, or C, part of my Dark Dimension 4 team that I previously used, or all of the above in some regards. So the biggest regret that I ever had was Sabretooth. Why did I Gear Tier Sabretooth? That was because I was in a bit of a rush to get into the global section. I don't believe I used him in my first 5. Pretty sure, actually, he may have been. He may have actually been part of my first 5. And so the reason for this is because he is super easy to gear. I believe he only requires 1 set of mutant minis, and so as far as that goes, he is incredibly easy to gear. I was really desperate. I wanted to get in there quick, and in hindsight, you know, it really didn't matter too much because I got stuck waiting for Cosmic anyways, so it would have been better to put a better character in there than Sabretooth. Interestingly, it didn't really stop me from one-shotting a lot of the nodes in there because Mr. Sinister and Emma... no, sorry, I didn't even use... I don't think I used Emma. I don't remember now. But I definitely had Mr. Sinister, and he carried a lot of that because of the cloning. If you guys have gone through Dark Dimension 4, you know how good Sinister is with the clones that you can pick up in those nodes. Don't do Sabretooth. And this is something I'm not going to do for Gear Tier 16. No matter what, Sabretooth is stopping where he is not going up higher because I regretted this immediately after doing this. Cap Sam, Bishop, Night Nurse. So Night Nurse, this was a Dark Dimension 4 city choice. Not the worst, not the best, but I don't see her going forward into Gear Tier 16. I think it's going to stop here. There are definitely characters, as you see, as I've gone up through my roster, characters who I've left alone, who I didn't take further, but some that I did because I thought there was some use and maybe not so much. Red Guardian is going to stay where he is, probably as well. I did take him this largely for Doom Raid, not for Dark Dimension, and, you know, I'm still using him, actually, but I don't see him continuing on. I feel like I will replace him with other characters, especially the Secret Avenger characters that I'm not fully using yet, Sharon Carter and... Maria Hill, to replace the likes of Red Guardian. Baron Zemo, been on the fence with this one. He is a very strong hybrid character, very glass cannon-y, but he is quite powerful. I just don't know if he's going to be the first one. He's not going to be part of that first list to go up, but he may go to Gear Tier 16. I do really like Zemo. Scream. Symbiotes, this is going to really depend what happens to the symbiotes going forward. I don't know. I think that there's a good chance that we're going to get Null the King in Black, and so what that means for the rest of the symbiotes, I'm not sure. So we'll have to wait and see. Beast definitely going up. All the Astonishing X-Men are going to go up from 15 to 16 without a doubt. I don't see them getting replaced anytime soon. Ghost. This is an interesting one because she is super powerful standalone for Dark Dimension. Is she going to make the cut for Dark Dimension 5? If there's a global lane, we don't know what the lanes are even going to look like. We don't know if it's going to be a repeat of 3 or 4. If there is, she may make the cut. If it's a different type of lane, she may still make the cut. But, you know, she largely is used in Dark Dimension only. The Pimtech team, not so great. She doesn't really do all that much in other game modes. Even in War, she's kind of mixed. She doesn't do a ton. A bit of a mixed bag there. So let me know what you guys think about Ghost. Do you guys plan on taking her to Gear Tier 16, or does that really depend on what maybe the Dark Dimension 5 lanes look like? Moondragon, Infinity Watch, I think without a doubt that probably will be a Gear Tier 16 for me. I think they're still a very solid team regardless of what you think about them. With or without Adam Warlock, I still think they're quite strong. Punisher. We've got to talk about Punisher. This was another one of those night nurses that I did for Dark Dimension 4 City. Now, I'm getting a ton of use. I say a ton. Okay, I'm getting some use out of him for Skilletary, and he is the MVP of Skilletary. He is the main damage dealer of Skilletary. So at least I'm winning my matches with Punisher there. Will he go to Gear Tier 16? Probably not. If he does, is part of that sunk cost fallacy that I was talking about, because he is also very cheap to gear. He is, I think, just as cheap as Sabertooth to gear, but on the skill side. So the problem is just standalone. He doesn't have a ton of value. Really depends on what the Dark Dimension lanes look like. He does offer additional damage here with City Heroes against villains. City allies gain damage. City Hero allies gain more damage. So and allies gain additional damage against villain targets. So I do like that portion. He just, yeah, he needs support to keep him alive. He's very hard to keep alive in things like Dark Dimension. Other characters on the fence. Hela. I don't think she's going to make the cut for Gear Tier 16. I think she's going to stop here. As much of use as I did have for her in Dark Dimension 3 and 4, I don't think she's going to make it. And for that matter, I don't think Minerva is going to make it either, because I think you kind of need both. Minerva and Hela, when it comes to Dark Dimension, it's both or nothing, I think, because Minerva really takes advantage of the deaths of Greg, and that helps her get turn bar. And without both of them, I just don't think they're all that useful. Emma Frost. This will depend, again, on the nodes, on the Dark Dimension nodes, and same with Mr. Sinister. These are a twosome here. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be taking them up higher. I'm kind of afraid. I think that there's probably other mutant characters that deserve to be Gear Tier 16 before her, and so a bit concerned on that front. Phoenix. Oh, again, that sunk cost fallacy is hitting strong here, and that really depends on what what going forward, what Dark Dimension 5 looks like, and whether or not she's usable at all, whether or not legendary characters will be usable because of the way that Phoenix operates. If it makes it impossible to use her, aka what if we run into a Kestrel on Dark Dimension 5, then we're effed, and so Phoenix will be cut. So that's really going to be depend. Invisible One. I brought her up as part of Dark Dimension 4 Legendary, although I use her absolutely nowhere right now, so I feel awful about this. This is definitely an example of sunk cost fallacy alongside Sabertooth and Punisher for sure. Didn't get a ton of use out of her afterwards. I probably should have saved that bio gear and just ran it again with 4 characters rather than using her as a 5th character, thinking that, you know, that would make a difference. And it did, but like, it didn't really matter though long term. Silver Surfer, unsure, because he's getting really power crept as well. Black Order is here. Infinity Watch with Nebula, Black Order, Ebony Maw. Again, same deal. Really depends on if there's going to be a legendary lane or not in Dark Dimension 5. And we're getting pretty close to the top here with Jubilee. Again, she's part of the Astonishing X-Men. She's going to make it. Thanos. I don't think any of my Black Order is going to hit Tier 16. I don't, unless there's a really convincing reason why, or if there's some sort of rework with the Eternals movie coming out, which I don't think. Thanos is going to be on that list, but if it is, maybe. Dr. Doom definitely will be, and the symbiotes, again, I talked about that already. Squirrel Girl, personal project of mine, so that's the whole reason why it's up there. No matter what anyone says, it's what I call the rule of 7. I got a 7 red, and so I geared her. Now, why I didn't do that with Shuri is because I liked Squirrel Girl better. So Squirrel Girl, I don't have her completely maxed out, but I hope, well, sorry, I meant to cross my fingers. I hope that there is a Young Avengers rework or Young Avenger characters coming out down the line, because I really want to do something with her. She's not a terrible character, she just doesn't have a good team to go alongside. I do like her though, and that basically ends the list. We have Gamora for Infinity Watch, and so, you know, there are a bunch of characters in my Gear Tier 15 that aren't going to make it to Gear Tier 16. In terms of priority, I think that's probably going to be in relation to Dark Dimension 5, and what we have to look at with that in regards to the lanes, and whether or not it's exactly the same as 4 or not, or what changes that they'll have made, and I'll have to make a decision on what characters that I have currently at 15 that are going to make it up to 16 for that reason. So that's the end of the video, guys. Let me know what you think about my roster. Let me know if there are any guilty pleasure characters you have, or are there any characters you regret gearing up that you just really didn't get a lot of use out of. Maybe you thought you would have got more use. You know, like I said, for me, I think a lot of those are characters like Invisible Woman, Punisher, Night Nurse, Sabretooth, and there's a few others on this list that definitely aren't going to make it going forward to Gear Tier 16. So, hopefully you guys have learned something. Maybe I've learned some lessons myself, you know, looking back at my own roster, and what to do and what not to do with these limited resources that we have. That's the end, guys. Until next time, stay safe and healthy, and I will see you all later. Boilon signing out.